Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Today on CityCast Denver. President Trump's Operation Aurora has begun, with a reported 30 people arrested in ICE raids across the Denver metro last Wednesday. But Trump was hoping for 100, and now administration officials are blaming the local media for their failure to arrest more people. Denver Post immigration reporter Megan Ululani Boyanton is the local media, and she's on to explain what actually went down from dawn to dusk last Wednesday and what it might mean for the next big raid. Today is Monday, February 10th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Megan Ululani Boyanton, welcome back to CityCast Denver.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me.
So you've been out all week covering these first ICE raids in Denver, and I kind of want to start at the beginning. How did you first hear that Wednesday was the day these raids would start?
Sure. So as far as we were concerned, I mean, it was very much a surprise. I was actually out on vacation through Tuesday night. So this was my my welcome home on Wednesday morning. So we, I believe that the raid started around 6:30-ish on Wednesday morning, and we already had people out on the ground an hour later at different apartments that had been hit. Some of those included properties in Denver and Aurora, like Cedar Run Apartments. I went to Whispering Pine Apartments in Aurora, the Edge at Lowry. And at those particular apartments, we had talked to residents, and apparently agents had gone door to door knocking. When I was at Whispering Pines, I talked to a stepdaughter of a man who was detained, who said that her stepdad had called her mother around 6:30 and said that ICE had arrived, and he and a small group of people had hid on top of the roof and were later taken by ICE.
Oh my gosh. So I have to ask about what happened next, because Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, said in the wake of these raids that the reason why they weren't able to make as many arrests as they had hoped was because, quote, local media had tipped off activists who had warned people that ICE was coming. Was he talking about you?
Definitely not me. Yeah, we had also seen, it appears that Fox News is getting, has received more information from ICE than we have. We've reached out to ICE, multiple reporters on multiple occasions, have reached out to our local ICE spokesperson and to the national media team, and have not received much information in way of certainly not when the raids were planned, but also how many people were ultimately detained this week, how many of those were members of Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan gang, where they were detained, what they're being charged with. Those are still a lot of open-ended questions that I've only been getting secondhand answers from outlets like Fox News, or I've also spoken with Aurora City Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky, who said that she put the estimates at the number of people detained at around 30.
Yeah, it's interesting that she's the conduit for this information. Is that who ICE is talking to?
Yeah, again, it's they're certainly not talking to us, or it appears to many local media outlets. So, and we would love to get some of this specific data as journalists. But I mean, you'll hear it from me first once we do get those answers.
What do you think about this allegation from Homan about local media tipping off activists? Like, what do you think he's talking about?
I think that, so the initial plan when ICE did announce these raids, it actually, we were able to, use their social media post as a way of confirming, because they went onto the social media platform X and posted about how they were out conducting operations to target 100 members of Tren de Aragua in the Denver area. And so as a result of that, I mean, we were kind of trying to see if, like, what the ultimate numbers were going to be. Who did they actually end up getting, 100 members of Tren de Aragua? And from what we've found out through, Fox News' reporting, is that it's a total of 30 people, and they believe that, according to Fox, one of those people had Tren de Aragua connections. According to Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky, she told me that all of those people had criminal records or severe gang ties. But again, I haven't received any of this information from ICE firsthand to confirm.
Let's go back to Wednesday morning. You were just describing this starting around 6:30 a.m., that ICE itself was maybe sharing this information on social media as like the starting point. Where did your day start? Like, I would love for you to describe, like, when you sprung into action, what you saw.
Sure. Yeah. So I woke up and drove from Denver straight to Whispering Pines Apartments. At that point, the raid had already finished, and so there weren't any more federal law enforcement vehicles there. But we were talking to my colleague Elliot Winsler, and I were on the ground, as well as other local media, talking to neighbors and residents and loved ones of people who had been detained. There were also different advocates that were on the ground. From there, I went to the ICE processing center, the ICE detention center in Aurora, and hung out there for a little bit to see if there was any sort of, elevated activity. And I did not see, nor did some of the local journalists that I talked to from CPR, see any buses of detainees enter or exit the facility. Instead, it was just the street in front of the detention center was crowded. It seemed like there were lots of people going in and out. I'm sure, trying to get information on what's happening.
Sure.
From there, I went to what we were told could have potentially been an ICE staging area. It's still uncertain what this was being used for, but it was a commercial parking lot off of South Colorado Boulevard in Denver. I drove into the parking lot, and there were different federal law enforcement vehicles from Homeland Security Investigations. There were two large unmarked white buses that an advocate told me looked similar to one of the buses that had picked up detainees earlier in the day. And there were lots of uniformed federal law enforcement officers walking around. I actually went up and chatted with a group of them, and although they couldn't answer my questions, they did have El Paso HSI patches on their arms, and they did confirm to me that they were from Texas. So they did have agents from out of state here, and everything else was directed at a PIO. From there, we were kind of trying to determine where the next raids might happen. I ended up getting a tip to go to Macon Street in Aurora. Went there and saw the kind of the final minutes of an ICE raid that was happening on Macon Street. I went and talked to some neighbors, and they said that a man was taken from an apartment building that I saw about a dozen federal officers gathered in front of. There were also a bunch of different law enforcement vehicles, including an unmarked black Nissan Armada that was flashing red and blue lights. And then there was an apartment building across the street that a neighbor had said that a woman had been taken from. As soon as I got there, I wrote down what I could, and it seemed like they were at the end of their operation, so officers jumped in their vehicles and left. But I stayed and talked to local residents and advocates who had shown up. Especially the Colorado People's Alliance was on the scene most of the day, offering help connecting with legal services for loved ones of detainees to kind of help plan their next steps. And from there, our entire newsroom was kind of working together as a unit to really put out, moment by moment coverage. We had people on the ground at Cedar Run Apartments. We had people that were, back at home kind of keeping an eye on the developing news and writing up the quotes and things that we were, getting from our on-the-ground reporting. And so the rest of the day was kind of spent monitoring to see if there were going to be any other raids. And it seemed by the afternoon, things had quieted down a bit.
This episode is brought to you by Denver Health. Did you know that Denver Health is home to one of the most comprehensive pediatric care systems in Denver? From bumps, bruises, and fevers to more serious conditions, Denver Health's pediatric urgent care is there for families when their little ones need immediate attention. But sometimes a child's care requires more than an urgent visit. That's where Denver Health's inpatient pediatric unit comes in. As part of a level 1 trauma hospital, this specialized unit is equipped to handle complex conditions, ensuring children receive expert, quality care from board-certified pediatricians that you can trust. With providers trained to treat kids from newborns to teens, families can trust Denver Health's pediatric team to deliver comprehensive, compassionate care when it matters most. To schedule a pediatric appointment, call 720-928-2127. That's 720-928-2127.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. During tax season, your personal info travels to a lot of places. Between payroll, your tax consultant, and the IRS. If your W-2 gets exposed, that's just the ticket for identity thieves. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it guaranteed or your money back. Don't let identity thieves take you for a ride. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Can you describe a little bit more of what you were seeing or what other reporters maybe had reported seeing happening? Like, what did this actually look like when you were able to get there as it was happening? Like, what did the scene look like at Cedar Run, for instance?
Sure. So I know that my colleague Shelley Bradbury, she was on the ground at Cedar Run, and our photographer Hyung Chang got these incredible pictures of incredible but heartbreaking. To be able to show this perspective to the public. I mean, of people, being detained and officers, escorting people off of the premises. I know that my colleagues spoke with a lot of neighbors who were, in disbelief about being asked if these neighbors, were citizens. They were being asked to snitch on their fellow neighbors who may not have the same legal status. There were people crying, people mourning, family members gathered trying to figure out where their loved ones have gone. I mean, a lot of scenes of disarray on Wednesday for sure. And then yesterday I went back to Aurora to kind of see what, things looked like. And I mean, Aurora, right? It's this big city, so it's not like it was a ghost town by any means. I went over to Lowe's Mercado, which is just a few blocks away from the scenes of one of the raids, and things were business as usual. But I did go back to Macon Street, and
that's that's a Latinx or Mexican grocery store.
Yes, exactly. And so things are business as usual there. And I had, seen reporting nationally on, places in like Chicago where a lot of immigrant communities had kind of emptied out as a result of these raids. And so in Aurora, I will say that, things were, business as usual as the community processed what happened. But Macon Street was certainly quieter than it was 24 hours beforehand when I was there covering that raid on the ground.
So you mentioned going out to the ICE detention facility in Aurora, as well as this sort of rounding or whatever the staging area. We're not sure still what was happening in that Petco parking lot off South Colorado Boulevard. Do we know where the folks that were detained, where they've gone or where they've been taken?
We do not know. That is something that ICE has not given me an answer to. I have spoken with one of the advocates on the ground on Wednesday, Lamine Kane, who's an organizer at the Colorado People's Alliance. He had told me that their group was being told that some of the detainees are being brought to the Centennial ICE facility. But I haven't been able to confirm any of that information with the agency.
And you mentioned activists. I wonder, what were you seeing on the scene when it came to the role that activists were playing or how that was playing out?
Sure. I mean, they were very active in, talking to neighbors and residents to try and, I think, get a sense as an organization or as organizations as to what had happened, what people had seen, and what resources people needed as far as legal services, as far as, having volunteers, at the site. And I know that in the days since, I've been talking to different significant nonprofits that work with these communities, like Casa de Paz in Aurora, like the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition. There's a number of people and organizations that have really been dealing with an influx of inquiries from everyday citizens on how they can locate their family members, but also from organizations who are kind of turning to them for their expertise in these situations.
So I want to go back to sort of just the imagery and what we've been seeing, because get on any social media platform and you're going to see tons of images. And there have been people saying that they've seen ICE traveling in tanks. I've seen images of armored cars with battering rams. What did that actually what did you see?
I did not see tanks. I definitely saw a few of those armored vehicles. I posted a picture of that myself. A lot of it was these were the marked and unmarked law enforcement vehicles. I think I was surprised to see that black unmarked Nissan Armada at one of the raids. There were also white vans, white buses that federal law enforcement was using. But yeah, in those staging areas in particular, I that's where I think I saw most of the actual tools that they were using in these raids.
Do you have any idea of the scope of this operation? Because it seems like it's media's been trying to sort of follow it from building to building, or this parking lot, for instance. Do we have any idea of the actual scope of the full operation?
We do not have confirmed numbers, but I will say that they definitely fell short of goal. As far as the number of people that they detained. And to go back to your earlier point, I do think that's one of the reasons why Borders Czar Tom Homan has blamed the falling flat of the raids on a media leak. Because, if the roughly 30 people numbers is in fact true, then that's, 70 people short. And if it is in fact correct that only one of those people were tied to Tren de Aragua, then that is 99 Tren de Aragua members short of goal. We didn't know either if the raids were going to start up again on Thursday. So I was up early yesterday morning just to monitor the situation. But things were still quiet on Thursday. So it seems like on Wednesday, it was mostly limited to those initial apartment building raids, which seems like they involved slightly larger groups of detainees. And then towards the end of the afternoon, like the raid that I ended up seeing on Macon Street, those were more individually targeted operations. So
you mentioned this number that's been floating around, that 30 people were arrested, including, like you said, the one member of the Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua. There hasn't been confirmation of that 30-person number, though, it sounds
Correct.
like.
Yeah, not of the 30-person number or of the one-person number. The only... truly, we have to wait for confirmation from ICE itself, and so far it has the agency has not been responsive to our inquiries.
Well, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt also said that more than 100 members of Tren de Aragua were deported from Colorado on Wednesday, but offered no more details. Do you know if that's true? Have you heard anything about that number?
No, I do not know if that's true. And it's, I do know that the Trump administration has been nationwide, not just in Colorado, ramping up, the number of deportation flights, including using military planes, which is, I think, a diversion from, or it's diverting from the norm of using commercial flights to deliver detainees back to their countries of origin. So I know that South America in particular has been receiving deportation flights. Central America, I believe India this week just got its first flight. But as for the one coming out of Colorado, I don't have any more information on that number. But I mean, we had a reporter, Elliot Wensler, go over to Buckley to see if there was any activity on Wednesday, and she wasn't able to find anything that was happening on the ground there of interest. So as the media, we're also trying to parse through a lot of the information that we're getting during this kind of chaotic time to make sure that we can give readers a better scope of what's happening.
Yeah, I guess that's just my question too, is where this all, like you said, you were ready to go on Thursday. Mm-hmm. Nothing else happened. Do you all have any idea of what's next?
Unfortunately not. and I wish that I did. But, for now, I've been leaning on a lot of our immigration nonprofits who really kind of have their fingers on the pulse when it comes to, the bonds that they've built in some of these communities. Also, there's a Facebook page where an organization posts kind of confirmed or unconfirmed reports of ICE activity. So that's been a huge help as a reporter. But for now, we're kind of focusing on the aftermath of these raids, trying to get some answers as to what exactly happened on Wednesday, and trying to brace for whatever happens next.
Yeah. It's interesting to watch this dichotomy of how the information is flowing and who's getting informed by what. And I have to wonder if ICE has learned their lesson about posting on social media, which ultimately could make it harder for activists and the media to even follow or figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I have noticed that, since Trump took office, a lot of the federal agencies and their different regional offices have been more active on social media in posting, about their activity day of, that is, or the day after. And I do wonder if that's tied to a lot of the pressure that the current president's been putting on, these operations. I think it was another national media outlet that reported that the Trump administration had created quotas for agents to hit as far as these raids. So whatever happens, I'll be here to cover it.
Yeah. Well, Megan, thank you so much. This was really helpful.
Absolutely.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell border czar Tom Homan about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. And if you love the show, come see us in person at Heyday, an indoor fair with urban flair on Saturday, March 8th. Get your tickets now at heydaydenver.com. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye. Wow, he does look like a border czar if I've ever seen one.